So, welcome to tasting for this year's Vintage Ale. I'm here with the great John Keeling to taste this year's Vintage Ale and give you our thoughts on it. So this year's Vintage Ale, we've kept the same malt recipe as last year. So we have the deep malty notes from the double roasted crystal and the Caragol malt and the notes that the invert number 2 brings. We're using an old English hop, so that is Bramley Cross. It's been around since the 20s, which gives you some sort of dark fruit notes. And we've used a new English hop that at the time that we used it was called CF169. It's now been very kindly renamed as Emperor, so a little bit easier to come off the tongue, which gives sort of citrusy notes. And this hop is very, very new. It's only just sort of come out this year. So I'm trying to use to sort of showcase good English ingredients, new English ingredients, to sort of say that there's a lot of good stuff, new stuff out there from the English growers and in the English brewing world. So we have the Bramley Cross will give you a sort of nice dark fruit note, so sort of blackberries, blackcurrant sort of notes. The Emperor hops have a nice citrus sort of tang to them. They work quite well with the orangey notes you get from the Fuller's yeast. When I've tasted it, I think there's a bit of apricot in there, there's a little bit of vanilla, and you get quite a lot of sweetness coming through from the malt, and it has a sort of good malt base note to it to build all those lovely flavours on top of. Well, it's vintage ale, so it's always special. So we've got the new hops in it, which are the first time we've used them. I think they've only just come out of the Charles Farren breeding program this year, so they've changed from a number to a name. And say every year is slightly different. Every year we try to do something slightly different, so it has a sort of different note to it, slightly different flavours. And we'll have to see how it ages with time. I'm sure, as with all of them, they age very well.
Vintage Ale goes back to 1997. The original idea was that we would try and produce a beer that had elements of vintage wine in it. And this has sort of evolved through the years, and I'm really pleased the way that Guy's taking this forward. Is the beer is not meant to stand still, it's meant to evolve. So particularly when craft beer came to the fore, we reflected that in the vintage ales we were making, and we started using some American hops, some New Zealand hops, as well as the more traditional ingredients. And I think Guy has taken that onto a different level now with the introduction of what are largely experimental new English hops. And thank goodness somebody's doing that, keeping the English hop industry still going. So I think vintage ale is one of those beers that ages really well. I personally like it when it's 10 years old, I prefer it then. But sure, some people prefer it when it's fresh, some people prefer it when it's a little bit older.
So what you getting on this one then, John?
Well, I'm enjoying it for a kick-off, but yeah, you know, normally with the vintage ale, you get that fresh fruit when it's young, but this one has got much more of raisin sultanas, that Christmas cake effect. And is it, you know, I think there's some brandy in there as well.
Yeah. So I think the sort of the Fuller's yeast notes that he's sort of quite famous for is that orangey, fruit cakey sort of notes, which, you know, as you say, the hops and this hop combination is helping to bring out.
I think so, and it's really great tasting it in a glass like this because it really helps the nose come off, and also you can warm it a little bit, and it is a bit like drinking brandy, these beers.
Yeah.
Yeah, this again, I think what we're doing at this moment is tasting potential, and we're looking to actually try and forecast in our minds how this beer will age. it's an impossible job really, but I think there's a lot of potential in this beer to age as well as any of the other vintage ales I've been involved with. And I think it's a credit to Guy that he's taken this forward from where myself and Georgina left it. Well, that's an exceptionally good beer, Guy. Well done. I think I should have retired early and let you take over quicker.
Well, thank you very much, John.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.